Time to pray. You with me? What do you tell a mother who just lost a son to the barrel of another man's gun? How do you tell his son this dad's never coming back? This is the position we're living will put you at. Why do we want all things clean? They lost kids, house, spouse, pawn, diamond rings. Now tell me, do you really have the answer when someone's in your face asking why they got cancer? How do you deal with the dilemmas in religion? Trying to consider both theirs and your feelings. Who's really right, who's really wrong? And by what authority you even stand on? What can you say to the oppressed in the ghettos, in the depressed in the suburb meadows? Listen up, I got something to tell you. Nothing makes sense unless God compels you. Give me more to do. Give me more to say. I'ma speak the truth. He gon' make a way. Give me more to do. Give me more to say. I'ma speak the truth. He gon' make a way. How we still free when we can't Trump? Let's make America great again, we ain't been a dump. They dumping hundreds of years of slavery. I'm on my Jeff, socialism is theft. We crazy? I won't apologize. Why Apologia? Not built by human hands. We the ecclesia. You don't know about the Alpha and Omega, boy. I rode with Luke, Marcus, about the joy and the love that we got for each other. I have many brothers, and we ain't undercover like that KKK. What you looking at? Who's to blame, Republicans or Democrats? Where the answer's at? Why do morals matter if we just protoplasm? Accidents make sense, I'm on that sarcasm. Listen up, I got something to tell you. Nothing makes sense unless Christ compels you. Give me more to do, more of you. Give me more to say, give me more. I'ma speak the truth. He gon' make a way. Give me more to do. Give me more to say. I'ma speak the truth. He gon' make a way. Let's go. I met someone who told me nothing had meaning. So I asked, did you mean that? And who's the one deceiving? They killing babies before they could even cry. I guess they plan for parenthood to just die. When Houston was underwater, Cali was on fire. If we only stardust, then why do we all bother? Tell me why. If it wasn't for the straight, you wouldn't have a gay. Cause if the whole world was gay, how do we procreate? Should we all die because of fantasies? Or should we practice do as thou will autonomy? So if I wanna kill anybody for any reason, you shouldn't judge, I'm just doing what's pleasing. Heavy belief system is about works, but I rest in Christ, therefore there is works. Listen up, I got something to tell you. Nothing makes sense unless the Spirit compels you. Give me more to do. Nothing. Give me more to say. Makes. I'ma speak the truth. He gon' make a way without price. Give me more to do. Come on. Give me more to say. That's right. I'ma speak the truth. Oh yeah. He gon' make a way. My foundation. Yeshua. Yeah. Otherwise you can't make sense of nothing. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. His death, burial, resurrection, and ascension is essential.
Welcome back, everybody, to Next Week with Jeff Durbin. I am Jeff Durbin. Glad you guys joined us for the show today. Please go like and share and let everyone know about the episode. Go to apologiastudios.com for more content there. I'm Jeff, and that's Luke the Bear right there.
What up?
What's up, man?
Hey, so just leftovers.
This is right. This is just you and me on the show today.
All that's left.
It's the first time we've done a Next Week with just you and I.
That's right.
What are we going to do today?
I don't know.
All right. Hi.
Talk about things.
Welcome to Next Week. What is happening right now? We have a very special episode today
Yes,
because we
we
have
do.
Ivey Conerly
Yes, I'm very
in the
excited about that.
studio doing stuff from his album, which is Don't Just Talk, Listen.
Don't just listen.
Don't just listen.
Yep.
Talk.
No. Just,
What?
don't just listen. That's it.
That's it. Don't just listen.
Yep.
Okay. Don't just listen.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the? Okay. I'll let you go. I'll let
Well,
him
yeah.
explain
So
that.
yeah, it's the name of his album. So.
Okay. Okay. Great.
He's been on tour a lot lately, actually. So
Has he?
It's cool to get him back in here.
With the Hog Mob.
With the Hog Mob, he's mobbing.
That's right.
Was mobbing.
Yeah, I know what that's like. I'm doing that all the time.
Yeah, you're always mobbing.
I'm always steady mobbing.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
He's
I heard
hanging
that
out,
somewhere
I
in some
guess.
song.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so I figured since we have Ivey on talking about or doing his music and we talk about art and Christian media and making it good to the glory of God, right? So I happened to just see this article on BuzzFeed, and it's titled "What Happens When Christian Movies Go Mainstream." It was actually a pretty interesting article.
They're horrible.
Well, yes. So there's specifically two quotes I want to focus on. The second one, we'll get into that. But the first quote, which I thought was interesting, it said, "It's gotten harder to make the case that Hollywood is hostile toward Christianity, or at least it's gotten harder to claim that what's being argued over here is really faith, rather than conservative Christian values, which are at least as much cultural and political as they are religious." So this is BuzzFeed talking about, Christian values and how they're cultural and political. So I thought that was really interesting. It was like,
What do you think they're getting at with that? What?
I don't know. I didn't follow the point they were trying to make, but I thought it was interesting just because we would say that, well, this culture used to be,
Right.
used to value
Right.
Christian conservative values.
Yeah.
In politics as well, and now we're just vestiges really of what used to be.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just thought that was interesting.
Well, it's an interesting point too, because what Dr. White said on last week's episode of Next Week was even old writers who were not Christian that created good narratives and stories and everything had to essentially borrow capital from the Christian worldview to make their stories good. Like, that's how entrenched the Christian worldview was in every aspect of society. If you're going to write a good story, even if somebody was not professing Christian, they were so used to the Christian worldview and as the foundation really of everything, even the ethical systems and all that stuff.
Exactly.
You had to borrow capital from the Christian worldview to write a good story, because there had to be actually a thing called good and evil. There had to be a flow to history and a telos, a goal. This is where we're all going towards. And so stories had to make sense like that to a Christian culture and a predominantly Christian audience. And now we have an abandonment of the Christian worldview in every area of life that possible. And there's a forceful pushing out of the Christian worldview in every area of life, whether it's education on any level, or politics, or media. I mean, just think in terms of social media today. Even social media today is essentially pushing anybody out of the conversation that holds to a perspective, a worldview that is explicitly Christian.
Right.
So if you say that there's a pure or holy or legitimate, harmonious sexuality between only a man and a woman, if you say that, you can be essentially derided for hate speech. You can get in trouble for hate speech today. If you say that men are awful, wicked sinners and rebels against a holy God, you can have your sermon taken off of Facebook, right? I mean, so like that conversation is being controlled now. But like in terms of Christian media, it's interesting because when you look at like popular Christian films that come out today, that come out to the theaters, they're not even good.
No.
They're not well done. They're not well written.
Right.
They're very poorly acted. And I think we can all say that as it's almost like it becomes like a sin in Christian communities at times to say that was a really horrible movie.
Yeah.
Like the acting was horrible.
It's like you hate God if you say that.
Right. The script, just because it's Christian doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't good.
Right.
But I think a lot of times when we have like a film that's a Christian film that does well in the theaters, whether it's God's Not Dead or Unplanned or whatever the film may be, it does well in the theaters. I personally, and I'm willing to be wrong, I don't know everything, I'm not the supreme authority on this, but it's just my feeling. Like, how come a really terribly done film, in every respect, script, acting, storyline, just you name it, it's just poorly done, it's just not good. How come it can do so well in the theaters? I think it's because Christians often think like it's our duty as Christians to pay for this film, to go to this film, and to support it because it's Christian. Right? Well, I think that we didn't used to think that way. Like, we're the ones that gave the world the best art.
Exactly.
Like, it wasn't atheism that built the great monuments to beauty and architecture, artistry, all that. It wasn't atheism didn't develop that. The Christian worldview made those things because we have a worldview that can make sense of beauty and art and goodness and all those things, and like doing things to the glory of God, doing things that last and that are meaningful. Atheism doesn't develop those things. We built those things. And they remain in history as beautiful monuments because Christianity gave the world those things. But now we suck at art. Like now we're terrible. And now what's amazing is the secularists, the humanists have co-opted our beautiful strategy of beautifying the world and cultivating God's garden and doing amazing things and growing this thing up into awesome stuff. They've co-opted it and they're using it, but they're using it in a perverse way. They distort it, like Dr. White said in last week's episode. Like if they're going to do a film series, this is what makes it horrible. The cinematography is better. Than Christian films.
There's more money spent.
There's
better
scripts,
acting.
The acting. It's so much more well done in terms of the visual, but in substance, it's corrupt and horrible. It doesn't even tell a good story. Ultimately, it doesn't have like good foundations. And in order to make it something that's appealing, you have to sell flesh. So it's all sex and it's nudity and everything. Why? Because I need that shocking moment. Like to really enjoy this film that's an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes long, I've got to have at least one or two moments of like of an appeal to my flesh where I go, oh, that was so good, right? Because it was nudity or sex. Like that, we got to sell it like that. Because why? Because you can't just have a good story that's fundamentally good. But so unbelieving art and film goes one direction in terms of it's better cinematography. They have more concern that it looks visually stunning and beautiful, that the acting is actually quality, good acting that draws somebody into catharsis where you're into the story. Like they're concerned with that, but their foundation is horrible. Like what comes out of their mouths is not horrible. The story they're trying to tell to get to the end goal, you go, none of that is good. Right? Like the ethical system underneath what you just tried to promote was not good. Because all storytelling is supposed to project meaning. It's supposed to influence you in some way. Like if you read the Chronicles of Narnia, it's amazing writing, it's an amazing character, it draws you into the story. 45 minutes later, you're reading going, oh, I forgot I was in my bedroom. Like I was in that world, but you get to the end of the story and you learn something. The author was trying to project something onto you. You should adopt my view of reality. So all stories are trying to do that, and the unbelievers try to project a reality upon you to adopt that's not a good one, and we should all reject. But hey, I'd rather watch that in terms of cinematography and artistry, because we go over to the Christian film, and while it might have a better moral foundation, everything else around it, they almost act like it doesn't matter that it's aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't matter that the artists who are doing the acting are good at their acting job or anything like that. So it's almost like I can agree with everything in the Christian film that it needs to be heard and adopted, but can you give me something that actually glorifies God in terms of beauty? Like if you look at a night sky in Arizona, that God does that every night. And gives the most banging amazing sunset.
We have some amazing sunsets.
Every night. And it's effortless for God. He spoke it into existence and it just carries along all the time with the most beautiful artistry. When you and I went to go out shooting recently in the desert, remember that?
It was incredible.
We're in the middle of the desert and the sun's going down. You had to stop and just watch because it was insanely glorious. And that for God is just like nothing. He just speaks it into existence. And that's our Creator. We're His image in the world. We shouldn't create bad art because God is not a bad artist. He's not a poor artist. So why are we emulating the Creator and His artistry in a way that actually disfigures it and actually brings shame to Him as an artist because we're His image? We're supposed to be the artists in the world. Why are we doing such bad art? Like that should matter to Christians. It's not just the foundational story that should be moral. I agree with all that in Christian film. But I dare you to do this. I dare you to take two devices, and on one device, get a subscription to Netflix, and on the other device, get a subscription to PureFlix. and here's the thing: I'm not asking you to go watch the sinful stuff on Netflix. But just watch the stuff that's just the general stuff that's on Netflix, and just watch it and look at the difference between the artistry and the dedication to the actual form.
It's believable.
Yes. And then I dare you to try to stay on PureFlix for more than 30 days without canceling your subscription. Because it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's all bad.
And then what we've learned is the people that do stay on PureFlix are the old people that don't really watch it anyways.
Or, and how many times have we run into this? Somebody that's on PureFlix for like say 6 months or a year, and you'll ask, "Are you watch anything on there?" And they're like, "Nah, not really." But like they feel like they're doing their duty, like they're tithing to PureFlix, right? Yeah. Like why are you supporting PureFlix?
Yeah, supporting
well,
Jesus.
Because I want to support Jesus and the gospel, and like it's like but it's really terrible.
Right.
So this guy comes up to me at the conference last week, and he's like, "Hey, your ministry's really blessed me." He was mentioning you and just all that God has done to really encourage him and to give him a solid foundation. He said, "You guys have really inspired me to become a director." And I said, "Great, a film director." He says, "Yeah, like I want to direct films." I said, "So you just want to be a director of films, right, and make good movies?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Not a Christian director, right?" He said, No. I want to make good movies." I said, "Good." Now, of course, we want them to be movies that glorify God and are in their substance Christian with a Christian worldview. But just because you're a Christian and you want to make film doesn't mean you have to make Christian films that go on PureFlix. Right. Why don't you make Christian films that go on Netflix and that unbelievers go, "Hey, did you see that movie?" Right? That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like what we should be creating the stories and the films and the artistry that they build conventions around. Like why aren't people going to wear our costumes for our stories and our characters, right? Like how come it's the unbelievers now that are owning all of that? The stories that everyone wants to be in, where the Christians now are making the stories that people only want to donate to.
Oh gosh.
Right? So sorry, that was my rant.
Yeah, I was just saying like Darren, like our friend Darren Doan, that's what he does. You know, he had a series on on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
And it was amazing.
And what was the name of it? Shore Break.
Yes, you should check it out.
Go check out Shore Break. So
yeah. Well, and I think going back to what Dr. White said, even I think there's an argument to be made that good stories, when it comes to movies, can't be good unless they borrow from the Christian worldview.
Yes.
You know, like I'm even thinking like I don't know if it's too soon to give out spoilers for Endgame, right? But there was a
spoiler alert. So don't cry.
There was a definite messianic theme in Endgame that was amazing. But where did they get that from?
Yeah.
Christianity, right? And so yeah, I mean, when, like Dr. White said, when they stop using good themes from Christianity, then they have to resort to the garbage, the shock value,
perverse,
like
shock value.
And so, you know, one thing we've learned too from people that are in the industry and know is that big name companies like Sony, for example, will pay Christians to make these Christian films, and they'll pay them well because they know that they're going to make a ton of money on them.
Because Christians will donate to it.
Yeah, and then the budgets aren't that big in these Christian films, but they know there's a huge profit margin in those films, which is terrible. So that brings me into the next quote then. So it says faith-based films provide the sense of being safe for their audience. They're clean and family-friendly in their context, unchallenging. This is where it gets crazy. They're unchallenging in their storytelling and feel good in their arcs. Their qualities seem largely incidental to many of the people who seek them out, and critical derision may only make audiences embrace them more. What matters is that they confirm the beliefs and the worldview of their viewership.
There you go.
Yep.
Critical derision will only make people want to view them more.
Yep.
What's that mean? What are they saying there? It sounds like they're saying that Christians who have these films go to the theater and all the Christians are going to see them, when people are critical of the film, like it's just a poorly made film. It's a bad story, bad acting. It's just a terrible, terrible film, that Christians will feel like they're being persecuted for righteousness' sake.
Yeah. Yeah.
When in reality, You may not be being persecuted for righteousness' sake.
It's just bad.
You're being persecuted because it's terrible artistry, right?
Did you say righteousness snake?
Righteousness snake. It's been a long day. So that's interesting, though, that even unbelievers will see that.
Yeah.
Like if you say this is a bad film, the Christians are going to respond with, "Everybody, let's all hashtag it and go see the film," right? And you're on your phone the whole time because it's such a terrible film.
It's just terrible.
You're at least there for the popcorn.
Yeah, true.
And that's about it.
And it's expensive popcorn.
Yeah. So what I have appreciated, I think you and I, when we first started really hanging out, you and I had like a huge Christian hip hop and rap sort of phase. And the reason why I think is because you and I were doing all that at a time where Christian hip hop artists were actually making some really good hip hop. Lyrically, they were very, very good at what they were doing, and it was quality. It was actually higher quality than the secular hip hop and rap that was out.
Yeah.
And that's why we appreciated it so much. But it was only, I think it was a good experience for us, because it was after a time period where Christians were trying to get into the rap game, and they were just really bad at it. They were making bad stuff.
Oh, like the DC Talk?
Nobody would want to listen to it at all. No one wanted to listen to it. But actually, it started getting to the point where people were actually trying to follow the Christian hip hop artists. They're making better stuff.
Yeah.
They're making really good stuff. So you have artists like Lecrae.
Yeah.
He was better than all the secular artists, like lyrically, his skills and all that stuff. And so that's why people were so impressed with him, because Lecrae didn't get so popular and really break out of the Christian section of it, like as an act of their grace, going, oh, okay, we'll let you over. Like people recognized he's good.
Yeah.
Like when he was on Sway in the Morning is one of the biggest shows that, and everyone wants to be on that
Hip-hop show. Yeah.
If you're anybody anybody who is an inspiring hip hop artist, or you're just the dominant person in the hip hop industry, you're supposed to be on Sway in the Morning. Well, when Lecrae was on Sway in the Morning, Sway was out of his mind impressed with Lecrae. He's like, you're what this was supposed to be about. And here's a Christian artist in this rap game that is doing better than anybody else. He was just good.
Yeah.
Now, no matter what you think about Lecrae now and like some of the things he's said and done in terms of like Christian commitments, let's be honest, like that's a good example of like how Christians should lead an industry. If Christians get into the rap game, they should be the best in the rap game. If they get into rock, they should be the best in rock, and they should just make great stuff. If they're in the film industry, they should be the leaders there where everyone says, this is what this industry is supposed to be about. And the point is, from my perspective, it's not about the person, it's about God being glorified. And of course, the influence you can have there in that whole genre, you can have the godly influence there, where now the people who are making perverse content in the hip hop industry or in the film industry or television, the people who are making perverse content recognize now they're in the back. And they're like, we better start making content that's like that tells those kinds of stories, or we're not going to have any money anymore.
Right.
So it should be Christians that actually lead and say, no, you tell these kinds of stories, you have this kind of language, you have these foundations, and you do it with this kind of skill. We should lead everywhere for the glory of God.
Yeah. And that's why one reason why I like Ivey so much. You guys will hear some of his stuff. I think he's a good storyteller, and he's very raw about the stuff. You know, he grew up hard life in the hood, and he tells it from a Christian worldview to the glory of God. Right. So he can tell a raw story about what it's like growing up in the streets and seeing, you know, dudes get their heads blown off and, you know, selling drugs and all that stuff, but like he can do it in a way that glorifies God.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, is more of that. So you can be real with people, but you can do it in a way that glorifies God. You don't have to be vile to tell a real story.
Well, and maybe we should end on this point. I think that's a really good point you're making right there, is that I think a lot of times Christians are afraid to tell hard stories, right? Because they think Christians or people are too sensitive.
Yeah.
Well, the failure of that is that it's not honest.
Exactly.
You're not being honest.
Exactly.
You're not telling the truth, or you're not actually pricking an image bearer of God where they need to be pricked. Like, here's what I'm saying. When Christians create a film or a television show or music, and they're not honest, I'm not saying be vile, but if they're not honest about like how hard life is, how sad it is, if you don't tell like a true story about the way things are, if you don't do that, then people don't believe you, right? And I would just challenge people with this. If you're an artist and you're in a particular field and you're trying to tell good stories, whether it's music, whether it's film, if that's where you're at, I would just say, read the Bible. Like, that's God's story of history. And there's a lot of ugliness in it.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of ugliness, and there's a lot of honesty in it. And that you don't chastise God, forgive me for even suggesting such a thing, but you don't chastise God because in his story of history, he tells all the truth about certain elements of history, whether it's adultery, whether it's murder, whether it's about a father getting drunk and sleeping with his daughters.
And you just mentioned all of the Sunday school Bible heroes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got even God in the book of Isaiah talking about his bride in some pretty graphic terms, using words like prostitute, harlot, whore. Like, God tells the truth when he tells a story, but he's not vile because he has a point. He has something he wants you to know, something that's true
It's a
about
serrated
that.
edge.
Because it's a serrated edge. He wants you to change your mind about it. He's not saying, here's the ugly thing, it's good, accept it, just that's the way that it is, and I'll glorify it. He's saying, here's the ugly thing, look how ugly. Believe how ugly this is, and now watch what I do with it. And that's what storytellers should do. So I'm saying is tell stories like God.
Yeah.
Have integrity, tell the truth, and make it awesome.
Amen.
And speaking of that, we have Ivey Conerly. So before we get to that, guys, this is Next Week with Jeff Durbin. That's Luke the Bear. I'm Jeff Durbin. Make sure you guys go to endabortionnow.com, endabortionnow.com, to get linked up with the over 400 churches across the United States of America that are saving children right now. God has saved through this mission over thousands and thousands of children from death. You give me a part of that work just by going to endabortionnow.com. When you go, you can get signed up with your church. You can get free training, free resources, no cost to you whatsoever. Be a part of what God is doing at End Abortion Now. Thank you. This has been Next Week with Jeff Durbin. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.